Uncomfortable.
Hurt.
Abuse.
Violence.
Fear.
Pain. Intimidated.
Alone. Scared.
Anxious.
Silence.
Humiliation.
Embarrassed.
Attack.
Bully.
Worthless.
The purpose of this study is to examine the current language used to describe bullying and violence within school and legal documents aimed at addressing bullying. By looking at the language of bullying, we can begin to think critically about what bullying is and what needs to be done about it. We have conducted various interviews in order to understand what bullying means within Halifax in order to compare it to what it means in official documents.
Bullying is defined within Halifax Regional School Board's Regional Code of Conduct as intentional, hurtful behaviors repeatedly used by one or more individuals who exercise power to intimidate, threaten harm, and victimize another person who is perceived as relatively weaker. Bullying can be direct and open or indirect and subtle. When speaking to an RCMP officer, he presented a similar conception of bullying. There was a tendency for those interviewed to have similar perceptions, that bullying is a power imbalance between victim and bully, enabling the bully to cause harm to the victim. Bullying was defined as
anything that makes you uncomfortable.
A form of harassment.
Making someone feel like they're not important or they're worthless.
Bullying is when somebody intentionally or unintentionally hurts someone.
When you try to make others feel bad about themselves to make yourself feel better.
There seems to be ambiguity surrounding bullying due to the subjective nature of what may cause harm to another person.
Bullying may include the use of violence, speech, or force with the intention of causing intimidation, belittlement, defamation, and embarrassment.
Bullying is a crime that is not treated as a crime by means of punishment, justice, or preventative action. Bullying is a word to make the crime seem less important or serious.
Bullying, to me, is a form of harassment, but a lot of people don't see it as a form of harassment. They just see it as like kids picking on kids in schools. But I think that bullying can happen anywhere. It can happen in school, it can happen at work, it can happen. The only difference is if it happens at work or if it happens on the street, it's legit called harassment. But if it happens at school, it's called bullying.
violence in the Halifax Regional School Board Code of Conduct refers only to the physical dimension of violence. Violence is defined as using force or inciting others to use force to injure a member of the school community. Interview and poll responses indicate there are mixed feelings in our community surrounding the definition of violence. Many people agree that violence refers to a physical act to cause bodily harm. However, more prevalent was the consideration for a definition more broad.
Violence means to me doing anything to hurt someone else in any form.
I see there's so many kinds of violence. There's physical violence, emotional, psychological, sexual.
Violence is something that causes harm to someone, whether mental or physical.
The act of trying to hurt somebody else, either physically or mentally.
Violence to me is anything that hurts. Violence can be physical, it can also be emotional, it can be psychological.
Violence appears to be more broad than the purely physical violence outlined in the school board's code of conduct. In order to prevent violence and reduce the harms caused, it must be understood what violence is. It appears to be anything that causes harm, so how can one know if someone is causing harm or is harmed? What causes harm may be a subjective opinion, so when does a joke between friends turn into a hurtful comment? When does a friendly nudge turn into a shove? Violence seems to have an emotional response or intent.
We interviewed multiple individuals, asking them what their definition of safety was. This is what they came up with.
A lack of danger. Feeling comfortable wherever you are.
Know that nothing bad is going to happen.
Place where you are protected.
Feeling secure.
No fear.
Be yourself without being judged.
Not having to worry about being harmed.
Feelings of security and a lack of fear.
Safety is a place you can go without judgment.
When you feel safe and you feel secure, you feel like you belong and you feel like you're loved.
The Halifax Regional School Board, like any school board, prides itself on the safety of their schools. Through the creation of the Regional Code of Conduct policy, they have addressed the issues of bullying and violence in an attempt to control and prevent them. However, there is something crucial that the school board lacks, an official definition of what safety really is. It's all well and good that they have programs implemented to create safe environments, but without a definition of safety, how can they accomplish their goal of becoming a safe environment? Perhaps another problem with their policy is that it is only a reactive approach. The Halifax Regional School Board's website states that the safety programs are only offered by school request, meaning that they often come into place only after an act, such as if bullying has already occurred.
Being unable to identify the language that surrounds safety truly limits the school board's ability to provide a safe environment. Without properly defining a goal, how could anyone ever hope to achieve it? Is it possible to create safety if its true essence is still unknown? And will fully understanding what safety is even help to create a more successful program? With a proper goal, it is possible to create an environment that can be defined as safe the way everyday people view safety, because in the end,
safety is an individual interpretation.
Within bullying, there are multiple types of abuse, including physical, psychological, and emotional. A common place to find these types of abuse is through cyberbullying.
Cyberbullying is now a common act with great capacity to cause psychological or emotional abuse to another human being. The Cyber Safety Act defines cyberbullying as the use of technology for distribution of anything to cause fear, intimidation, humiliation, distress, or other damage or harm to another person's health, emotional well-being, self-esteem, or reputation, and includes assisting or encouraging such communication in any way. This definition emphasizes the psychological and emotional aspect of being tormented or bullied. Can this be considered a form of violence? What does the general public have to say about this? Are they the same?
Same thing, different name.
No, I've always viewed violence as a physical abuse.
No, violence is a physical act, whereas emotional and psychological abuse is mental attacks.
It's not the same, but it's equally and sometimes more damaging.
Yes, because you can be violent towards someone verbally, even if it's not physical.
It's different because violence, even though it hurts you inside, it's more of a physical thing.
In many ways, I believe they are the same. Having someone emotionally and psychologically abuse you every day can have the same negative effects as physically abusing someone. It can beat someone down and cause depression, which is very serious.
We get that saying, sticks and stones will break my bones, but actually, names will never hurt me. And we actually were taught that as kids, and it was kind of backwards. Our bones heal a little bit quicker.
It is clear that the public is torn on whether or not violence is synonymous with psychological and emotional abuse. But there is something we must consider. If we accept the idea that they are completely separate from each other, we must also accept that cyberbullying is not violent in nature. If violence is strictly confined to physical acts, like many have said, we must consider that we are claiming cyberbullying is not a violent act.
In search for rationales that might explain or shed some light on why bullying happens, we examined data on the Halifax Regional School Board's website. However, we weren't very impressed. There was a general lack of data directly pertaining to bullying or potential explanations for why bullying occurs in schools and elsewhere.
The data we did find tended to place responsibility on the parents at each proactive and reactive measure. If you read the Regional Code of Conduct policy to an extensive length, you'll find a section titled Bullying. However, as we pointed out, the proactive responses the school board provides are unclear, extremely vague, non-directional, and unhelpful. The code's strategies do not address bullying at its root, nor do they solve any harm done.
The language the school board uses formulates a distinct message that schools need not play an important role in addressing bullying. We asked the community for their opinions on why bullying happens, and this is what they had to say.
Bullying happens because people who are bullies are pushed to the fringes because of their violent behavior, and in that isolation they become more aggressive because they don't have anyone to kind of give them some healthy guidelines in how to curb that.
Because of people's insecurities, they have to take it on somebody, and it's usually someone weaker.
Possibly peer pressure?
I think that bullying happens when one individual receives some form of gratification from bullying another individual.
Children and teenagers like to make fun of the rejects in their schools.
People bully others because their own low self-esteem, and bullying makes them feel important or empowered, because they have no respect for others, because of mental illness or emotional disturbance, because they think it's funny and do not appreciate the harm it's doing.
Many responses suggest that problems or issues within the bully may explain the violence the bully commits, in turn placing the responsibility on the individual, while the Halifax Regional School Board places responsibility on the parents. This indicates a clear disjuncture between citizens' opinions and the content provided by local institutions of education.
I think there's like a number of reasons, and I don't think any case of bullying is the same as another one. I don't really think that they can be analyzed just as one thing, because sometimes people bully people because things are not happy at home. Sometimes, these people have been bullied at school and they don't know how to deal with it any other way. Sometimes it's all they really know. Sometimes they don't actually know anything else. Also, the media plays a huge role as well. If you look on music stations or stuff like that, and you hear rappers talking about hitting people, any kind of music that reflects on that, or even TV shows, and you look at that and they're like, oh, maybe this is how I should be, especially if they don't have positive influences in their life. There's more than a million reasons for why bullying happens, and it's the way society built it.
Since bullying is a product of society, it is up to society to learn and understand what bullying truly is and the concepts that surround it. Only then is it possible to move towards a productive solution.
Uncomfortable. Hurt.
Abuse.
Violence.
Fear.
Pain.
Intimidated.
Alone. Scared.
Anxious.
Silence.
Humiliation.
Embarrassed.
Attack.
Bully.
Worthless.